Hi, my name is Nancy Brannon, and I'm going to be sharing some information with you about the etiology and reservoir of cholera. Cholera is a diarrheal infection of the small intestine. It's caused by the bacterium Vibrio cholerae. The Vibrio bacteria have a slightly curved or comma shape. It's a gram-negative rod and is mobile thanks to a single polar flagellum. This bacterium does not produce endospore. After the patient consumes the bacteria by mouth, most bacteria don't survive the acidic conditions of the stomach. A few bacteria are able to survive by shutting down protein production. This saves energy and nutrients. Upon leaving the stomach and entering into the intestine, the bacteria must propel themselves through the mucus layers and into the intestinal wall. They do that with the use of that flagellum. In the intestinal wall, the bacterium is able to thrive and survive. The flagellum is no longer needed, so the bacteria stop producing the flagellin protein and change their protein production because of the changing conditions. They begin to then produce a toxic protein, which spreads through the feces and gives the patient watery diarrhea. This toxin is called choleragen, and it's abbreviated by the initials CTX or CT. The gene for the CTX toxin comes from the bacteriophage DNA and is produced through lysogenic conversion. It is an oligomeric complex and is made up of 6 protein subunits that are connected by a disulfide bond. There is 1 single copy of the A subunit and 5 copies of the B subunits. The A subunit is enzymatic and has a G protein that produces adenylate cyclase. The B subunits are receptor binding. The structure of choleragen is similar in shape and function to the enterotoxin that is produced by some types of E. coli. I mentioned that Vibrio cholerae is a gram-negative bacterium. This means that an outer cell membrane is present, as well as peptidoglycan and plasma membrane layers. The lipopolysaccharide contained in the outer membrane makes it resistant to some conditions and substances while being sensitive to others, like things that affect lipids, like alcohols. The flagellum is attached in the basal body with 4 rings. The cholera bacterium is often found in conditions of poor sanitation and improper water treatment. It can survive in brackish water and salt water. It has been found in contaminated food, contaminated water, and in undercooked shellfish. And in those shellfish cases, this is when the product had been sourced from contaminated water and not cooked thoroughly enough to kill the bacteria. When I say contaminated water, I'm referring to water that has been contaminated by the feces of someone who was infected with intestinal cholera bacteria. Casual contact does not necessarily put someone at a high risk for contracting cholera, since this is direct contact via the fecal-oral route.
Hi everyone, I am doing the signs and symptoms of cholera. Most people that have been revealed to this bacteria don't even realize that they're sick or know that they've been infected by it. And in most cases, people tend to have mild diarrhea and vomiting in the earlier stages that can last for hours at a time. Dehydration, which can also cause dry mouth, extreme thirst, irritability, low blood pressure, and some others. Some more signs are electrolyte imbalance, which can cause some muscle cramps and or shock. Signs and symptoms of cholera in children are similar, but they also have some differences. They're more likely to get low blood sugar or hypoglycemia. They in an altered stage of consciousness, seizures, and they can go into a coma.
So we've already discussed a little bit about how cholera is spread through contaminated water. This kind of transmission is called horizontal transmission, meaning that it doesn't pass from parent to offspring, it passes from person to person. It's also indirect, meaning that you can't get it just by being in contact with someone. It is spread through a vessel, which in this case is water. Cholera is really prevalent in areas with poor sanitation water techniques. So for example, slums and refugee camps. The picture on the slide is actually a picture of a camp in Africa where there was a cholera outbreak. So once the water in the area becomes infected, it's easy to spread throughout the population. In more developed countries, like here in America, cholera can be spread through food, especially seafood, if that food was first washed with water infected by cholera. So water becomes infected with cholera through the feces of those who are already infected with cholera. We know that diarrhea is one of the symptoms, and so when that leaks out into the water supply and other people drink it, that's how cholera is spread. So an example of this happening recently is in the aftermath of the 2010 Haiti earthquake. The earthquake damaged the water containment, and that resulted in a cholera outbreak because there was poor sanitation while the country was rebuilding.
So to just jump right in, there is a vaccine. It's called Cholera for this disease. However, it's not normally recommended by the CDC or the World Health Organization, just because it only lasts a few months. So you'd have to get it very regularly, especially compared to other vaccines that last for years. And it may only protect up to half the people that receive it. I'm not sure why, but that's just how it is. But again, there is a vaccine. It's called Cholera. There are a couple other vaccines, but this one is the only one that's approved by the FDA. So just be mindful of that. So when you are drinking water, it's primarily a waterborne disease. So the best way to prevent it is to be careful and make sure you are drinking clean water. Whether you are drinking it or using it to brush your teeth or clean your foods, whatever, your water needs to be clean. So it needs to have been boiled or chemically treated or come from a water bottle. If your water isn't any of those three things, you need to be very aware and cautious and careful. And there are some ways you can get cholera through your food, such as eating unpeeled fruits and raw vegetables, or drinking or using unpasteurized milk and other milk products, eating raw or undercooked meat or shellfish, or fish that's been caught in a reef that may have been contaminated. All of those are ways you can get cholera, so you also need to exercise some serious caution when you're eating those foods. It's a pretty regular thing that we do, eating raw vegetables and raw fish. So just be very careful and aware of that. Now, cholera is highly treatable. It's fairly easy, but you need to get treated fast because dehydration can happen dangerously quick. So the first thing you should do is rehydrate your body. Hydration is so important. So depending on severity, cholera can be treated by oral solutions or IV solutions just to replace those fluids that your body has lost while being sick. And you also need to take some antibiotics to kill the bacteria that entered your system from the bad water or the bad food. Taking antibiotics is not part of the emergency treatment for mild cases, but it is important that you do this. Taking antibiotics also reduces the duration of your symptoms, such as diarrhea, by half, which then reduces the excretion of that bacteria. And once all that is done, it really helps prevent the spread of the disease if you're just killing it inside your system as quickly as you can. And just a little side note, there is a way to disinfect your own water. This is very important if you're going camping and you're not bringing your own water bottles, or if you're in an emergency situation, you can use this tip. So you boil your water for 1 to 3 minutes depending on your elevation, or you can filter it by using a commercial chemical disinfectant. I've seen these come in tablets that are about this big, and it's pretty easy to do. You just throw it in the water and it disinfects it. If I was in this situation, I would boil it and use the chemical just to be on the safe side. But there is a way to disinfect water if you're ever in a situation where you need to clean your own water. And it's highly recommended so you can prevent getting cholera.